What is going on, everybody? This is Jay Silver from Jay Silver. I did some changes on Google Plus, and now my name went from SNN Tech to Jay Silver, so that's pretty interesting news. Other than that, I've been strictly a live stream channel, but today we're going to do a controller comparison and my personal opinion on what I think between the difference between the Xbox 360 overall to the Xbox One. So, let's just focus more on the one and look at it more aesthetically. I mean, the first thing that I noticed when you compare the two is that if you look at the buttons, you can see that the buttons on the one has the background black and the letter is actually the color of the button. So say, for example, look at the A button. You see the background is black, but the letter A is green, the X is blue, the Y is yellow, the B button is red. And when you look at the older controller, the whole button was that, the color of what it's supposed to be. So they make that change there. The controller actually is smaller in the hand, so you can just compare it to. You can kind of see that the Xbox One controller is smaller when compared to the 360. They changed the D-pad. The D-pad is much more clicky and tactile when you have the older version, which is one gigantic mold together D-pad, which a lot of people didn't like. I didn't mind it, actually. If you also look at the back, you can see that the battery pack does not protrude like it does in the 360 as opposed to the one. The battery is actually in this little compartment back here, which you can see 2 AA batteries, which I need to get the charge kit to get the rechargeable battery, and also the start and back button, which you have on the 360, becomes the view button and the menu button. So analogs also as well, small analogs, which you would expect from a smaller controller, as opposed to the bigger analogs from the much larger last gen controller, and also the positioning of the what I would call the actual Xbox menu button on this one is kind of repositioned more in the upward position from the 360 version. If you look together here, you can look at the bumpers and the triggers, quite different. You can kind of see that the bumpers are actually a little bit more wider on the one, they're smaller, more rectangulish on the 360, and the triggers has a much wider side view than the more slimmer profile on the Xbox 360. Now, oh yeah, let me not forget the charge kit or the charge ports. This became a micro USB, which is universal, so you can use anything to charge this controller now, which is a godsend, as opposed to this proprietary port that the 360 has been using. And the sync button seem to be in the same location. As you look at the bottom for the chat cables, they both still use their own proprietary ports, but they're different, so you can't use whatever headset you're using now from the 360 and try to port that over to the one. You just simply cannot. Now I'm going to give you the good about this Xbox One controller. Triggers feel great. Doesn't need to take any use to getting for triggers, and the D-pad, I mean not the D-pad, I'm sorry, the analog stick seems to have a lot of grip, so when I move around it seems like my thumb is like really put in place, like I won't slip as easily as it felt on the 360. If I move too aggressively, I can feel my thumb starting to slip ever so slightly from the rubber grip of the 360 controller, as opposed to the one. The grip seems to be much more solid, so when I start to play more aggressively moving analogs, I don't feel that little slip off. The D-pad, like I said, off comparison here, you feel it in your hand, it feels kind of cool. You would think that it's a better D-pad, but it's a whole other story when you have actual gameplay. I'm going to do some gameplay comparisons to show you guys how I feel about that. Alright, so in this test I'm going to demonstrate Ryu's light version of a Hadouken, which is a simple quarter circle motion with X button. Look how simply I'll get it off with the Xbox 360. Now you can see I have the input at the bottom of the screen, so you can see exactly what I'm doing. Having no issues getting in that quarter circle motion with this controller. Once again, I'll demonstrate. Now similarly, I'm going to use Jago from Killer Instinct, and I'm going to do the light version of his Endokuken, or his light fireball in Japanese terms. Same exact motion as Ryu from Ultimate Marvel, quarter circle with X. I have the input on the side, and you can see that the diagonal motion is currently being ignored for the most part. That's one success rate. As you can see, that this requires a lot much more effort to get out the fireball, as you know, in comparison to the Xbox 360 controller. Now, if you're a person who's a serious gamer or who will seriously play fighting games and who you like to use a controller as opposed to an arcade stick, this can be a frustrating experience. Biggest complaint for me so far, or actually two complaints. The bumpers. I feel the bumpers is absolutely horrible when you compare it to the bumpers on the 360, because it feels like the hinge of the bumpers is at the edge here, and I don't like to curve my fingers back so far back when I play. For me to get a real clicky response from it, you have to be at the very edges of the controller, as opposed to right here where my fingers probably more comfortably lay, so, and they won't click. Like, you see that pressure, you have to apply a lot of pressure because that's where the hinge is, and you're not really getting a clickiness effect. When you compare it to the 360 version, whether you go right here, you hear that? It clicks regardless. But on the Xbox One, you really have to apply a lot of pressure because that's what the hinge is. And there's the clickiness effective error in the back, so that's pretty much not good. Okay, so my second major complaint about the controller is that it's so small. Now, to each his own on this call, because I have these huge massive hands, and so by the 360 controllers being as kind of spacious and wide as it is, feels nice and comfy in my hand. Just feels like these massive hands of mine can just wrap around the controller and not feel like it's constrained into a tiny area. This controller, when I hold it in my hand, it just does not feel as comfy as I would like, and I feel like I have to mush everything in. You get what I mean? You can also see like the button layout between the two. Like the 360 buttons seem to be a little bit smaller in a way, but they're more spaced out, while these are larger and more enclosed. So I feel like there's a probability that I can have an accidental button press between, let's say, the A and the B button or the X and the Y button, because they're so close together, as opposed to on the 360. Though they are smaller, they feel like they're more spaced out, so that accidental button press seems unlikely in the event that I would have an accidental button, especially when playing a fighting game. So I'm going to demonstrate for you guys how I have difficulties, like, you know, kind of like experimenting with a fighting game. Say, for example, I'm gonna demonstrate how I can execute in my favorite game, Ultimate Marvel, and the newer Killer Instinct on the D-pad. Now, the D-pad would be a third complaint, but I'm gonna say this could be just me and my skill level, and it's something I'm probably gonna have to adjust to. Not everybody probably has this problem that I'm having, but this is what I'm having as of this moment. My final verdict for the Xbox One controller, I mean, it does have a better grip, but personally, it's just not for me. I'm not digging the smaller size, and I'm not digging the buttons being so close. And for whatever reason it is, maybe it's just me and my thumbs are extremely large, but the D-pad feels like, you know, it's not much of an improvement to me, because I feel like I struggle more to execute on the D-pad than I actually did on the Xbox 360 version. Now, that can be probably an adjustment that's going to happen throughout months to come, but as of the first impression, as of this moment right now, as I'm using the D-pad, as I'm playing more and more, I'm having increasingly difficulties getting those simple motions, and I'm finding myself resorting to playing a fighting game with an analog stick as opposed to D-pad, which I personally prefer. This is Jay Silva from SNN Tech. Tell me what you guys think. Write your opinions and your experiences with the Xbox One controller in the comment section below. And I'm out, y'all. Later.